Hey, hi everyone. So today we will see one data structure problem and the different ways to solve that problem, and we will try to get a best solution for to solve this problem. Okay. So the problem statement basically is we have the array of numbers, and the numbers are of three types: zeros, one, or two. So the task is to sort this array in ascending order. As you can see the screen, these are the arrays, and we need to sort these arrays in ascending order. Okay, so the first, what are the approach you think is which can solve this problem? So the first and most common solution generally people can think of is, just to count the number of zeros, number of one, and number of twos, and just write that many that much of count in that same array, in the iterative way, right? But if you can think, we have to iterate two times this array. First iteration is to get the count of the zeros, one, and twos, and second iteration is to iterate, I mean to override this array again by that many numbers, right? So it has basically, this approach has basically two iterations, but that is not a good solution, right? Right. So what is the optimum approach to solve this problem? So we will discuss, we are going to discuss this optimum approach in this video. So guys, let's initialize the three variables which will basically indicate the index of this array. Okay, so let's initialize the start index, mid index, and end index, right? So the start and mid will both initialize to 0, and this end index will get initialized to total size of this array minus 1. It should be the last element of this array. It means 0, the index of the last element of this array. So let's start with this initialization. So there will be basically a loop which will basically and we will which will basically continue unless the mid element, this mid index, is less than or equal to the end index, right? Okay, so let's start with this. So the first condition will be if this mid element is equals to the 1, then we will not do anything and we will just basically increment the mid index, right? So in this case our first element, basically this mid index is pointing to the first element, that is 0th index, which is 1. So we will just increment this to increment it by the 1, so it will basically point now to the second element, and index is 1, right? Clear up to this? Just stop me and ask me questions if you stuck anywhere. If you are not getting it, just stop me and ask me the question, right? Okay, so we will go ahead. Now the second index, that is 1, what is the element at the index 1? So it is again 1. So we have to just increment this mid index by 1. So let's do that. So now this mid index will point to the second index, right, which has the value 2. Now what is the element at index 2? Index element at index 2 is 2. Now if this is 2, then we have to swap this element at index mid with the end index, right? So this 2 will get swapped with 0 element. So let's do that. So this will become 0 and this will become 2, and we have to reduce our n index by 1. So now our n index will point to, so let's say the size of array is 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So size of the array is 7. So if we reduce it index by 1, then it should be 6. Now n index is pointing to the second last element, and mid index is pointing to the second index, right?
Correct.
Now let's check what our mid index is pointing to. Now mid index is pointing to the zeroth element, I mean the 0 element, right? So if it is, if the number at mid index is 0, then we should swap that element with the start index element. Okay, so let's do that. So if we can swap this mid index element with the start index element, then 1 will be at here and 0 will be goes here, right? So let's do that. And after that we also have to increment our start index by 1. So I will increment it. I have incremented it by 1. Previously it was 0. Now I have incremented it by 1, and mid element will remain same, right? Now next task is we have to again check what our mid index element is pointing to. So our mid index iterator is pointing to the element 1. Now what we have did when it was, what we have did in the past, when the mid index is pointing to 1, we have to increment it by 1. So our mid element index, we have to increment it by the 1. So let's do that. So if you can increment this mid, then it will point to the third index, right? Correct. Now let's check whether what our mid index is pointing to which element in the array. So it is 0, right? So if it is 0, then what we have to do, we have to swap the element at mid index with the element at the start index, right? So this 1 will go here and this 0 will come this side, right? So let's do that. So this will become 0 and this will become 1, and at the same time we have to increment our start index by 1. So this will become 2, right? Cool. Now we have to again check what is our mid index is pointing to. It is pointing to 1. If it is pointing to 1, then we have to just increment it, right? So let's do that. So let me increment this mid index by 1. So now it is 3. So if I can increment it, it will be a 4, right? So correct. So let's check again what is our mid index is pointing to. So mid index is pointing to the 0, right? So if it is 0, then we need to swap it with the start index element. So start index element is 1 and mid index element is 0. So we, if we can swap this, then the 0 will take place of this 1 and this 1 will take a position at this location, right? So let's do that. So let's, this will become 0 and this will become 1, and we have to also increment a start index by 1. So previously it was 2, now it should be 3. Cool. Okay, so As of now, all clear? If you have any question, just stop me and ask me the questions, right? Cool. So now the next thing is we have to again check what is our mid index element is pointing to. So it is pointing, so mid index element is 1. So we know that, right? If it is 1, then we just have to increment the mid index with 1. So now it's 4, we have to increment it by 1. So let's do that. So now it is pointing to fifth index, right? Cool. So now we have to check what is our mid index element is pointing to. It is 1, right? So we know that if the mid index element is 1, then we just have to increment it by 1. So now this mid index is 5, we have to increment it by 1. So let's do that. So this is now 5, now it should be 6, right? Right. So if you can remember, we are doing all these operations in the loop, and the loop is, the condition for the loop is we have to continue the loop unless the mid index is less than or equal to the end index. So I think let's check that for that condition. Now our mid index is 6 and end index is 6. So whether a mid index is less than or equal to 6, the condition is true, so it will no longer go into that same loop. So the condition in the loop will be false, so it will come out of the loop. Now we have to check whether we got the expected output or not, right? So if you can see guys, this array is in sorted manner. So all the zeros are at the beginning, all the one are after in the middle positions, and all the twos are at the end. So our array is in sorted order, right? So this is our last solution. So we have started with this array, right, with initializing the start index and the mid index at the 0th position and end index at the last position, right? And we are doing all the operations inside the loop, and the condition in the loop is mid element index should be less than or equal to the end index position, right? So if you can observe, the complexity of this program is order of n. Why it is order of n? Because we are iterating only once. We are iterating on this array only once, right? So in previous approach we were iterating the 2 times, which is not a good solution performance wise, right? Just think of, like, if this array is of size of huge size, then that 2 iteration will become a performance bottleneck, right? So in this case we have to iterate this array in in only one iteration, right? So this is the complexity of this problem is order of n, correct? So let me know if you guys understood this. If you have any question, just ask me right away. Thank you, hope you have understood this problem, and thank you.